Now let's begin. I've talked about yoga and transcendental meditation. Let's begin to look at these ideas and ask, are these occultic? All right? In light of the New Age and Hinduism, we're going to look at these ideas of yoga and meditation like the ones that Oprah promotes on her site. But we see, as we look back at history, mankind has regularly decided to turn away from the only completely true source of divine revelation in the universe. That's God, the God of the Scriptures, to follow his or her own lusts and passions. And the Bible points out that many times this turning away is a willful act of sinful man, as we saw in Romans 1. Notice what God says to the Israelites before they go into the land of Canaan. Deuteronomy 18, look at verse 9. When you come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. You hear that? When you come into the land the Lord your God is giving to you, you shall not learn to follow the abominable practices of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who burns his son or his daughter as an offering, anyone who practices divination, or tells fortunes, or interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or a charmer, or a medium. A medium is what Alice Bailey was. It's what a number of these New Agers are. They're talking to these spirits, these demons. A necromancer, or anyone who inquires of the dead. For whoever does one of these things is an abomination to the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God is driving them out before you. Now, we are not ancient Israel, but God is giving them specific instructions on how not to worship Him. Right? These instructions, I would argue, still stand. Do not go and follow the abominable practices of those nations. God judged them greatly, and He will judge us now if we participate in them. Look at Deuteronomy 12, 29 through 31. When the Lord your God cuts off from before you the nations which you go to dispossess, and you displace them and dwell in their land, take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them, after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way. For every abomination to the Lord which He hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. These abominations the Lord hates. We have Christians now who claim we need to go to the New Age. We need to take back things like channeling. I'm not kidding. Christians, quote-unquote Christians, claiming that we need to go to the New Age. We need to go to Hinduism and Buddhism. We need to bring things back like channeling, like yoga, like meditation. God says, don't do it. We'll talk about what biblical meditation is briefly. Biblical meditation is not what is prescribed here. But these acts are not acts dreamed up by men, but they are either overtly or covertly satanic in their origins. As we noted from Paul earlier in 1 Timothy 4, that he says some of these things people are going to devote themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons. So what about yoga, right? As we get into this, what about yoga? Well, yoga and transcendental meditation, the goal of both is, get this, it's Hindu God realization. That is, that a person might figure out that they themselves are God. Okay? If you watch the lesson on Hinduism, you listen to the words that we talked about in the emergent church and the words that these people are saying, we need to realize that we are God, and yoga and transcendental meditations are one of the ways that we can do that. There's a number of different yoga styles focusing on poses, some on breathing and some on both. Some of these styles are things like Hatha yoga with a concentration on poses, Raja yoga, which covers all 8 stages of yoga, Kundalini yoga, which focuses on awakening psychic centers or chakras, and pranayama, which is a focus on breathing or controlling the prana or the breath. Now the Hindu, the New Ager, the occultist, whoever you're dealing with or may know of, they'll speak of these 7 chakras or psychic centers that originate at the base of the spine and go up through the body and terminate on the top of the head at what's called the crown chakra. And they speak of the Kundalini force that is coiled at the base of the spine like a serpent. And the goal of practicing yoga and meditation is to awaken this Kundalini force and have it go up through the chakra centers or these energy centers until you realize that you are enlightened. I usually tell anybody that I'm teaching this stuff is that if you ever find a religion where a snake is glorified, you run from it. Okay, you just run from it. You get away from it. All right? Here's this is from the Transcendental Explosion, a little more on the Kundalini. It says the Kundalini is thought of as a female serpent lying dormant at the base of the spine. When aroused via yoga or transcendental meditation or so on and so forth, she travels up the spine, opening the chakras or psychic centers, and leads to union with Brahman. Traditionally, she is known as Durga, the creatrix, Chandi, the fierce and bloodthirsty, and Kali, the destroyer. She is also Bhajangi, the serpent. As Chandi or Kali, she has a garland of skulls around her neck and drinks human blood.